we see these situations where guys melt down. Wouldn't it be interesting if you could find like a high-performance psychologist that deals with sports? And Dr. Michael Gervais does exactly that. High-stakes environments, pro athletes, and he deals right now with Pete Carroll, who's always been willing to try new things. And Pete sort of reinvented his career when he got to USC, and Dr. Michael Gervais is joining us. You know, Doctor, first of all, there's a lot of different athletes. There's the older athlete. There's the global athlete from out of the country. It's the new athlete, the young athlete. Are all athletes, when you deal with athletes, is it the same mechanism with all, or is a younger golfer different than an old football player?
Yeah, great question, Colin, and thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Yeah, the psychological framework is particular to each person, and the way that they see the world and the way that they understand their sport or their craft and the way that they understand themselves is a unique facet for each performer and each individual. So age doesn't really matter as much as the sophistication of one's psychological framework.
Is it an advantage or a disadvantage on your parents and how you were raised, an environment 0 to 10 or 0 to 15? Does it help or hinder your performance in crucial crisis situations?
Is the question like if parents raise you to be to deal with adversity or they coddle you? Is that the question?
Yes. I mean, yeah. I mean, are there different ways to raise a kid that could help?
Oh, yeah, there are. We want to be able, when we're raising kids, we want to make sure that we're rewarding effort and we're rewarding the things that are in their control. And we're rewarding, the times when they're straining and striving and really digging deep. We want to recognize that more than recognizing the outcome, because the outcome is something that we cannot control. And when we teach kids to value the outcome, we teach them to value something that's not in their control, which then in return puts a child or a person in a position of feeling and being out of control, which is certainly the beginnings of performance and or other anxiety responses.
When you watch Jordan Spieth, psychologically, what's happening to a great golfer yesterday, quadruple bogeying a hole?
Well, I've never spent time with Jordan, so I don't know his psychological framework, and I don't know exactly what's happening inside him. But certainly we could recognize that if we look within ourselves, that we first want to answer the question, like, why are we fascinated by this? And it's because when we can point when the strong man stumbles, somehow we feel a little bit better ourselves about either not attempting to go for it, or when we do stumble ourselves, that, we're part of a pack of people that stumble. And the fascination of him not being able to close out is, I think, telling about people's focus. People are focusing on mistakes and failure and tragedy and hostility more so than celebrating the going for it and the ability to really close when the time matters.
PhD Michael Gervais is a high-performance psychologist currently working with the Seahawks. If you got into a crisis situation yourself, you keep saying psychological framework. Is there a way to rush through a crisis? Is there a tried and true formula for a Jordan Spieth, to a Michael Jordan, to a Tom Brady in crisis? You stumble. I'm stumbling. Is there just one way to get out or multiple ways?
Well, the pathway through crises is to be present. And being present, being here, being where your feet are, is the skill. And it's a skill that we can teach ourselves, well before a crisis is happening. And being present might sound trite or, overused, but it is where excellence takes place. And it's where all great performance takes place, is when an athlete can be in the present moment. And so that is a skill that we can train our minds. And it's certainly the pathway through. When people rush, they're ahead of time. And when people are worried about, or thinking about all the things that happened in the past, they're behind the moment. And so being on time in the present moment is the pathway through anything that's challenging.
That's great. So what you're saying is Jordan Spieth should not have thought of the last shot and shouldn't be too concerned about two shots. He's just got to, in the moment, say, let's live in the moment with this 12-foot putt, and that's the best way out.
And that is one of the most challenging things to do when things around you are blowing up, whether we're in times of, war or, in a conversation that's not going the right way, or whatever our circumstance might be, that when it's challenging and it's difficult and it's not going the way we planned it, do we have the mental ability to be here now and be fully present? And it's a challenge. And the natural state of our mind is a bit like a drunk monkey, and it wanders all over the place. And a disciplined mind to be here in the present moment is rare. And this is one of the reasons we love sport, because it forces us to be present, to be able to capture our craft, the thing that we work so diligently to be able to refine.
Dr. Michael Gervais is a PhD in high-performance psychology, now working with the Seattle Seahawks. You say psychological framework. You've used that term a couple of times. What does that mean?
Psychological framework is essentially how a person sees the world, how they understand how their craft and their sport works, and even how they work or people work in general. So it's basically the lenses that we see the world through. And, some people will say, hey, what do you think that such and such athlete is going to do in this game or this tournament? And really the response is like, what do you think of their framework? And if the framework is solid and robust and they enjoy challenge, they see it as opportunity, then you can bet on that person. But if their framework is weak or built on sand, if you will, and it's like we're not sure what we're going to get as soon as somebody gets punched in the mouth. And what we know is a mark of people that do amazing things is they sign up to do challenge. They love challenge. They look forward to challenge, and they understand that adversity is part of that challenge. And this will be a moment of adversity for Jordan. Likely, we don't certainly know, but looking at some of his social media, when he says that this is going to sting, basically what he's capturing is that this is a moment of adversity. So how he deals with it will be, really important for him.
Dr. Michael Gervais, it's interesting. In golf, they call it the yips. We've seen baseball players, Rick Ankiel, Chuck Knobloch, there's something above the shoulders that's not working. When you eliminate it, how do you avoid it coming back? Or is that, my dad was an alcoholic. They say once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Even when you're cured, the disease lives with you every day. If you have the yips in golf, and even if you eliminate it in a space, is it always just a moment away, or can you cure yourself of the yips in golf forever?
It's a great question, Colin. And it's like, curing like it's a disease. And, it's not a disease. It's a moment in time response that was not eloquent. And yeah, of course, this is not something that if you've had it once, you'll have it again. That's not how this works. However, the thought or the fear of it coming back can be crippling. And so it's not the fear of it. I'm sorry, it's not failure that's a problem. And it's the fear of the failure that becomes problematic. Yeah. And it's the fear that keeps us stuck and worried about what's going to happen if it goes wrong again. And one of the marks of people that do amazing things and even shift the way we understand what's possible in the world is that they stare down adversity and they stay positive in the face of it. And one of the kind of marks of how to stay positive and be resilient in the face of adversity is to really embrace challenge, control what you can, and then commit to the long game, and when I don't mean long game in golf, but commit to the arc of mastery. And it's that arc of mastery as opposed to just getting the quick win that is a telltale sign for people that are going to pursue their own potential and maybe shift the way what we think is possible.
Dr. Michael Gervais, a sports psychologist. Let's shift to the Seahawks. Pete Carroll has worked with you, Yogi Roth, somebody I know. And Pete's always been almost contrarian to the football culture I know. He's a surfer. He's got that Cali spirit. He is willing to roll the dice. For you, I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of coaches in your life. Is Pete different?
I'll tell you a quick story, is that when Pete and I first met, there was a wonderful synergy between the two of us. And he invited me to come up to see what he was doing up at the Seattle Seahawks. And flat out, it is different here. And it's different because, I couldn't quite figure it out the first couple hours that I was walking around the hallways trying to get a sense of it. And there was a common thread amongst his coaching staff. And the common thread response would be, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I could just be myself here. So he creates an environment that is relationship-based. And in that relationship-based environment, what he's working diligently and uncommonly so is to find out who a person is so he can celebrate who they are. And he is grounded in much science. Like, he is really grounded in science. He understands it. He works from a very clear understanding of psychology and the research around it. And then he has a way of capturing it where people can feel like they can be themselves. And it's a wonderful experience to be around a group of people that feel that they matter and are hungry to figure out what's possible in their own lives. And so what I'm saying is that he lives it, he walks the talk, and then he's working to create an environment that is really switched on, where people are celebrating how to help each other be their very best.
Dr. Michael Gervais, high-performance psychologist, talking about Pete Carroll and Jordan Spieth. I'll throw something at you, and I'm in therapy. I haven't been in therapy for years, and I enjoy it. I just like talking with and listening to smart people, and that's why I like bringing you on the show, because I think you add something that a lot of people driving in their cars this morning have never heard. Thank you. Social media adds a context that I think can be very dangerous for performers. It used to be you played a game, and if you stunk, you went home, you internalized it, you came out the next day and played. But now that bad performance lives on social media, and if you get addicted to Facebook, if you get addicted to Twitter, you are reminded of your deficiencies. So I tell young broadcasters, stay off Twitter. It is a confidence killer. Do your stuff, rock and roll, prepare like hell, let her rip, and you're going to have bad segments. Do you find that social media can make your job sometimes more challenging for young athletes?
Oh, I think that most people are not prepared for how the impact, I should say, of social media, and I'll tell you why. My thoughts around this are that, one, it's a relentless, it's noise, and it's there, and it's relentless in that it allows people to pay more attention to what others are thinking,
yes,
rather than finding the signal about how you want to experience your life and what it feels like to be at your best, and what the preparation strategies for you to capture that in this moment and in moments moving forward. And so it's really it's noise to signal ratio is what we're trying to figure out. And social media, there's lots of noise, and it usurps. Is that the right word? Yeah. Usurps. Yeah. It usurps the mechanisms of confidence. So confidence can never really be sustainable if it's coming from people outside of you. Confidence comes from what you say to yourself and the inner dialogue that's based in a credible history of what you're saying. And so if we really want to teach the mechanics of confidence, we have to teach people how to pay attention to their inner dialogue. And social media is about other people's inner dialogue.
Yes. God, that's perfectly put. Dr. Michael Gervais, sports psychologist, high performance psychology. I wonder, like, for instance, in football, careers are shorter. There's violence. Hockey's got violence, whereas baseball doesn't have as much violence. Soccer doesn't have as much violence. Does the violence aspect for certain athletes change any of the narrative? Does it shift the paradigm at all? When some of the athletes you're dealing with, every play can be their last. Does that make it tougher, or does it change anything at all?
Oh, it definitely does. And rugged and hostile environments can both be physically and emotionally rugged. And in golf, it's not physically dangerous. It's emotionally and mentally, hostile. And so, but when we're talking about combat sports, it's as close as we can get to the origins of preparation for war. And that was the origins of where sport was first, came from, is to keep soldiers prepared, both mentally, physically, possibly technically and spiritually, ready to be able to defend, the family and the tribe, and so, or country, I should say. And so, combat sports certainly have that tone to it. And whenever you're in an environment that has real physical danger, it is important to be able to really work on mastering the ability to be present. Because if you're overthinking, what happens is people go mind blind, and literally they can't see the environment around them unfolding on time. And when I say on time, I mean, frame for frame for frame. It's almost as if when somebody is overthinking, is that they miss a couple of the frames. Now in football, if you miss a couple of the frames around you, all of a sudden that strong safety is right in front of you, and that's where you see people get clipped.
Dr. Michael Gervais, it's interesting. We're talking football, for instance. Ryan Leaf, it was later found out by Bobby Beathard, a psychologist came and said, draft Peyton Manning, not Ryan Leaf. there are certain brain types, and Peyton Manning's is a brain type to lead, and Ryan Leaf's is not. I imagine you've worked with some quarterbacks, specifically perhaps Russell Wilson. Do you find with a quarterback, for instance, there are certain types, personalities, brain types that tend to function better at that crisis position?
Great question. And my response would be to not talk about any athlete in particular, but to talk about the broader stroke, which is, are there particular personality types and or even brain structures that are better designed for leadership? And certainly, there's some thoughts and some research around that. My experience has been that leadership is a skill, and leadership is born out of an inner light that is just so bright, people are naturally attracted to you. And so that requires you to work on yourself, to be vibrant, to be clear, to choose words clearly, and to have the ability for your words to be backed up based on your actions. And so I don't think there's one particular type or even a handful of particular types. I think that amazing people that invest in themselves and care about helping others become better are essentially, part of the mechanics of leadership. And then the second part of leadership is being able to look over the horizon and believe that you can maybe do what the task ahead of you is being called for. And so, those are some of the basic structures of leadership. And no, there's not just one type.
Yeah. Dr. Michael Gervais, do you have a website or something people could go to if they're interested in this sort of stuff?
Yes. Coach Carroll and I have created a joint venture to try to capture what we have done together. And he's a wizard at being able to switch on a culture, and then my expertise is on helping people that want to pursue their potential train their minds. And so we've captured that, and we're able to put that into a format to help companies to do the same. And so it's winforever.com.
Winforever.com.
That's right.
This was fun. Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate you stopping by our show. It won't be the last time.
Colin, I appreciate your questions and what you're able to bring into the consciousness of people that care about sport and performance.
Thank you, sir.